Well, hello, folks. Happy weekend to you. I've got a bad cold. I've had it for a week, affecting my throat and, some coughing and stuff like that. These days, you don't know when you catch something, whether it's just a cold, like a common cold, one of those viruses, or COVID, a strain of COVID, or a flu. My rule of thumb is if I don't get a bad fever, I just am guessing it's a cold. I don't know if I should every time if I get sick like this, test immediately, go get the appropriate, medication to shorten its duration, whatever it winds up being, or just wing it. The one thing that's scary is even if you're vaccinated for the flu and COVID, this long COVID thing, it's not gone. COVID is endemic. And when you hear about people who get long COVID, it just sounds like such a horrific state to be in that, anything you can do to prevent that happening would be good. And you never know if your immune system is somehow, you know, upgraded from getting it several times and being vaccinated and you're out of the woods. I don't know. I'm generally not had many colds or flus in my life, but you know, you can't be too careful, especially when you're getting older. Uh, Several of my older relatives got pneumonia and died in the hospital. That's a very common way to go these days. So if you do get a bad cold or flu, you better go to the doctor. That's what I'm thinking. But this one doesn't seem to be like that, so I'm toughing it out. I feel a little better today, so hopefully tomorrow I'll be out of the woods and on the mend, and then I won't have to worry about it until next time. So, of course, these days, if you want to um, avoid getting sick, sleep right, exercise, don't drink a lot of alcohol, don't smoke. Do that stuff that your grandma told you about. And it'll help a lot, especially exercise and nutrition, obviously, sleep, all of it helps. So sometimes I don't take my own advice and I wind up drinking too much wine at an affair, and I think that makes you more vulnerable to viruses. I don't know. What do you think? Give me your advice in the comments below. Um, I'm coming on to make this video today because I wrote a couple pieces on Substack and at my website recently, and this morning I wrote a piece um, about profits. So I said the bottom line is profits first, and of course that sounds like overkill, redundant. So I said, how's that for redundancy? That's the nutshell, the crux of the biscuit, the raison d'etre, the core ethos of modern techno-industrial civilization. So yeah, many ways to say it, isn't there? Um, I made a little...
Right. Normal profit is basically the situation where economic profit is exactly zero.
Ah, okay.
It means the company's earning just enough to justify staying in business, covering all costs.
So when I wrote this piece, I did a deep research on a couple of things, uh, and then made Google documents out of my Gemini research, and then edited all of that, went through all of the reference materials and so on, edited those. Even if you use the LLM librarian, which is fantastic, it's a great tool. you still need to prompt it well enough and substantially enough that it gets your voice and what you're trying to say and what you want to say. And that makes the editing of the document a lot easier, right? If the more simplistic and the less like your voice your prompt is, the harder it's going to be to edit it, to make it fit what you really want to say, right? So it can generate a lot of information and do a lot of research. Normally I'd have to go through dozens and dozens and dozens of websites and read through them, and it takes weeks. In the old days, I used to do that and pull some quotes out of the documents and hyperlinks everywhere and so on and so forth. So this is much easier. So what I did was recently I've been looking at all of these organizations and lobbying groups that funnel money to special interests and causes, and in particular how that plays out in the Supreme Court and in the government in European nations and the United States, the corruption and so on. So let me start this. Okay, so one of the organizations I researched was Charter for Compassion. Oh, sorry, not Charter for Compassion. At Capital Research Center, America's investigative think tank. So there are millions of think tanks like this, and I'm also doing this for research for characters in a TV series I'm writing. And one of the companies in the series, I'm not going to give away anything because I need to protect my IP for now. But they engage in this kind of stuff, these kinds of activities. So I'm researching it. It's a lot of fun. And for writers, playwrights, and people who write nonfiction books or fiction books, any writers will really enjoy availing themselves of these tools. It doesn't mean that you don't write. You have to write your own thing. But for the research side of it, it's great. So I love it, and I'm going to use it while I can because I fully believe that at some point in the future, we're going to be unplugged. And perhaps only a very elite population of people who live in safe places will be able to use these networks. And the rest of us are going to be on our own. I'm sorry to say that, but I really think it's likely, so sorry about that, from all of my reading and research over the decades. Also, mentioning that over the decades, I sometimes get into conversations with younger people and get comments from younger people. And it's heartrending, actually, because it's complex emotionally, because I think about how stupid and shallow I was when I was young, although I thought I was profound. And, I was reading Heidegger and Camus and whatever, and learning about De Beers and Mao Zedong and whatever, just doing, Vietnam War. And thinking I knew a lot and studying business and going to school for this, that, and the other thing. And over the years, trying to get rich and whatnot. So I thought I was pretty clever along the way. I always knew I wasn't, so I had kind of a imposter syndrome thing going all the time. And I was thinking, I really need to learn more about this, that, and the other thing. So I kept doing that. Sometimes, like I've said before, I might have been better off if I'd just been like a person specializing in Japanese joinery or something, or craft beer, or whatever, rather than doing a lot of things like I did all over the world. But that was my life, and I enjoyed it. I did okay. So I'm very thankful about that. Who am I to complain, right? But it's only since really the 2008 crisis that I've started really paying attention to how the world works and thinking about it more deeply in many ways. And so I can say that it's been a couple of decades of that kind of work. And when younger people say, well, you've got experience, more experience and all that, and I can understand your frustration, what are we going to do kind of thing. It breaks my heart, really, because I don't know what to tell them other than get together with your community and build the resistance and try to overthrow this ideology, this pernicious, destructive, sick ideology. The ideology is basically market economics and profits first. So that's why I wrote this piece. And it was kind of inspired by this one quote that I saw this morning when I woke up. This wonderful woman, Francesca Albanese, she's an Italian legal scholar and expert on human rights. She was appointed United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories for a 3-year term, which was then renewed for another 3 years. She's the first woman to hold the position. I got that from Wikipedia, but here's the quote she said. The genocide in Gaza has not stopped because it's lucrative. Gotta love the word lucrative, right? And that set me off. So I kind of put together the research, part of the research, a little bit of it, of these lobby groups, organizations, and a deep dive into what profits are. So I did another report on what's this thing called profit, right? So this is a case study in the Capital Research Group, and I just put the executive summary and the conclusion in this piece. Then I reference the Dark Money Game on HBO, I think it is. Yeah, HBO original. It's very good. And of course, I've been paying attention to this, as I said, maybe from around 2005, actually. And as I said before, I used to be a big fan of Bill Moyer's journal. And he was a very good journalist dealing with these kinds of issues, Citizens United and things like that back in the day. And back in the day is only 15 years ago or so. And of course, he's been around a lot longer than that. He was in the Johnson administration, and he's a hero and a treasure, I think, Bill Moyers. Anyway, and I recommend these books, The Cult of Dark Money, Human Trafficking, and the Right-Wing Conspiracy Inside the Catholic Church. Opus Dei. You've heard about that from some popular movies and so on, and people like Mel Gibson and his father and whatnot. It's interesting. And for my research for my TV series, I've been looking at the Knights Templar and the Knights Order of Malta, and how these organizations hundreds of years ago kind of gave birth to finance. A long time ago in the Middle Ages, usury, lending money and interest, was against biblical precepts, so they frowned upon usury. But later they found ways to get around it. It's kind of like Bhumiputra or the Muslim banking system. Now, I'm crying because I'm coughing. You can look into that, how Muslim banks work and so on. So there's always a workaround. If God tells you this is a sin, you can figure it out. In Malcolm X's biography, he was talking about the Nation of Islam and Prophet Elijah Muhammad and his sins. And he was saying it's part of the prophecy. You got to be a sinner before you can be a saint, kind of thing. There's always a way to rationalize your bad behavior and make it out to be something good, which is what Uncle Sam does all the time around the world, saying that, we're making the world safe for democracy and freedom and free speech and human rights. Well, they contradict themselves and violate all of those things completely, totally, all the time, and really provide very little value other than funneling profits to American institutions. And this is what bugs me. This is what I think is wrong, immoral, evil, and this is what I'm against. And I'm never going to get rich saying that. If I were smart, I would funnel my intelligence into one of these think tanks like Capital Research Center and produce content like this. They have a magazine, When Charities Betray America, the Doge Files Targeting Fraud and Waste, all this kind of stuff, battle over women's sports, all this right-wing stuff. And I'd be making money. I'd be living pretty large, right? And I'd be respected, be in really nice suits and really nice rooms with really polite people doing God's work. And I would be feeling very righteous and well attended and respected. And life would be pretty good. But I'm not built that way, so woe is me. Poor little me. So So Religion and the Rise of Capitalism is another interesting book. I think very worth reading if you like to read books. I'm not a book reviewer type, so I think when I talk about Malcolm X's biography and stuff, these books, I'll just give you my impressions, what stood out to me briefly. And if I recommend a book, I mean it. So read it if you will. So I go down here to profit. What is profit? And I link to a document here, and you can see it's long. So it's many pages. It's got tons of stuff connected to it. And I went through all of it, vetting the links and information that Jem and I looked at and all that. It's not perfect, right? It's just something there in case you're interested and you want to have this conversation with somebody who thinks that the only way to incentivize people to do anything worthwhile is to give them money. And they have to make profit off of people's labor and off of natural services and the life in general to be able to do that. Otherwise, you won't have your Lumix camera to film your video with. So I understand all that. I've been involved in business, and I live in the real world, and I have a car and all that kind of stuff. My carbon footprint is horrific over the course of my lifetime, primarily because of travel. So a lot of jet fuel. So I'm a sinner, just like Elijah Muhammad. And I'm just looking at things now more clearly from a reality-based perspective, hoping to understand things better and perhaps inspire young people to revolt. Well, that's what's needed if you want to have a future. But anyway, you also need creativity and an imagination. You have to be able to envision better ways of living, and you have to contemplate population and degrowth and materialism and consumerism and all of these kinds of things. Not just philosophical skepticism, but what positive skepticism means and critical thinking. You have to do your own thinking, because if you allow these think tanks to tell you how to think, you're in trouble. And eventually, these AIs and LLMs and whatnots are going to be so invisible and ubiquitous that they are going to determine your beliefs and behaviors more often than not. And we're going to be helpless putty in their hands. We already are in social media and all kinds of other ways. Marketing departments are changing now because all the heavy lifting data work and analysis work, the math will be done, the testing and so on by the AIs. And all you'll have left are human beings who have their pulse on whatever is exciting people at the moment. In other words, whatever drives profits. It's not going to be really that we want to market goods and services to you that last, that are high quality and all that, and can compete in the world, because we don't want to compete in the world. We want to destroy our competitors so we don't have to compete. And we can sell you garbage, landfill, shit that breaks, or shit that has to be upgraded all the time. And, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to continue financialization, capital and capital returns, market economy, so that the few real and badass billionaires in the world can build their intentional communities in Tasmania or Antarctica or northern Canada or Siberia in the future, where their augmented children, with the brain transplants and the nano carbon nanofiber nanotube bones, whatever they do to make themselves like Superman, Ubermensch, will be, living while the rest of us starve to death. In the olden days, the bad people like Hoss, I saw that movie, what's it called again? Zone of Interest. One of the best movies I've seen in a long time for so many reasons. And I want to give an impressions video on what I thought of that. Anyway, when he really wanted to punish somebody in a mean way, he'd put them in a standing only cell where you can't sit down and let you starve to death. Starvation is a cruel way to go. It's the only thing I would condemn the most evil people on earth to, if I could. I would say, starve to death, you bastard. But of course, I'm not going to do that. But he did, and he was the guy who murdered 400,000 Hungarian Jews at Auschwitz. Think about the profits they made during that war. Schindler's List. Think about the engineering, the innovation, the efficiencies that they created while they were murdering Jews. And if you will, think about all the movies that are going to be made in 10 years, if we're still around, about Gaza and the West Bank and the Middle East, about Benjamin Netanyahu. There are going to be a series made, and it's not going to be about heroes. It's not going to be Saving Private Ryan. It's going to be more like, look at what those Nazi motherfuckers did to those people. And we'll watch and we'll go, my God, I can't imagine the banality of evil. Hannah Arendt. What happened? How could that possibly have happened? But we will have been the ones that watched the whole thing from beginning to the bitter end. As I watched the struggles in South Africa, Vietnam over my lifetime, as I watched the struggles in Central America, as I watched the struggles in the Balkans, as I watched the forever wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, and on and on and on. The genocide in Rwanda, Finally, Bill Clinton decides to do something. Was it lucrative? I don't know. He just had time that day. But what business is it ours if Houthis and Tutsis want to murder each other, I mean, they're still fighting in bits and pieces of the Congo and Rwanda and Uganda and whatever. We don't care because we bribe the people that give us the rare earths and the minerals, not rare earths, but the minerals that we need for our electric cars. One thing I said to a younger commenter was, I was trying to explain that capitalism with socialistic characteristics is still a market economy that requires a great deal of material and energy throughputs to grow. And so Chongqing may be the biggest city in the world and miraculous and amazing on so many fronts. Nobody knows where it is on a map, but I do. And my beautiful friend Lawrence wrote on his Substack, The Flautist, about that. Well, he didn't write it. He allowed a guest writer to write it. Sorry, I didn't bring that up. Posted this Chongqing Global and Invisible. And, all of this kind of market mechanisms are invisible to most of us anyway. So Guy Matan wrote this. He's a prominent Swiss journalist. And he wrote this incredibly interesting piece on Chongqing, which I think you should read. People don't understand China. And I lived in China, and I've known a lot of bigoted, jingoistic, small minded, uh, you know, Anglo folks from the global north who think that, China's stupid and it would never be able to compete with the West. It was truly the end of history, and everybody just had to let us, the United States of America, manage everything. And I told them they're wrong because first time I went to China was 1980, and I know the country, and I lived in Japan and China and Taiwan. And sorry, dudes. And then you see it blow up the way it has in terms of economic growth and development on all fronts in medicine, in technology, engineering, everything. And you say to yourself, okay, now America can't compete, so it has to try to go to war with it because at least war is going to benefit and profit some institutions and some individuals, which is going back to the quote the woman made on the Chris Hedges video. So anyway, this is a fantastic article, and I would definitely recommend it. So anyhow, yeah, I make this profits thing in case somebody hasn't studied economics that much or just wants to have a discussion about profits. Currency is another thing you could do a deep dive on, and how does that work, mechanisms, and what novel, innovative forms of currency could we come up with? At the end of the day, trading at this scale is doomed anyway because we have limits to growth, period. Sorry about that. It has to do with physics, it has to do with energy, it has to do with a lot of things. And even if this time, for real, fusion energy is only 30 years away, what is the world going to look like in 30 years, do you think? Now, a lot of my friends in the States, when all of these crazy weather whiplash events happen and floods, 1,000-year floods and tornadoes and all this stuff, to them it's just weather. Yeah, it's weather. Or to some people, it's just an act of God. What can you do? It didn't kill my house. I'm okay. So people just don't care at all. I mean, to them, as long as they can buy what they want to feel comfortable and secure, why would they care? Big deal. It's a little bit hotter this year, a little more humid, but I'm fine. I've got air conditioning and all that. And by the way, you see all these bizarre little ads on your YouTube, or I do, about these amazing uh, air conditioning machines that don't require much energy and all that. That's all BS. The physics, man, the physics. You're going to need energy to cool the house unless it's a passive system like heat pumps and other things that you can use to insulate or cool down, like earth houses and things like that. Yeah, so it's not, it just, the perpetual motion machine isn't going to happen, and so on and so forth. The aliens aren't going to save you. I don't think Jesus cares that much because, you know, the second coming, all this rapture and whatnot could have happened a long time ago. But no, we had to go through the Holocaust in Europe. We had to go through all these pogroms and wars and famines and floods and all this shit. It wasn't enough to have imperfect sinner Noah make the ark to save everything. We had to do it over and over and over again for thousands of years until suddenly enough people have made enough money to be insanely wealthy that, yeah, okay, Jesus can come back now. vengeful, mean, angry Jesus, and sort shit out. Dispensationalism, Christian Zionism, Opus Dei. Woo wee! You got it all figured out. Anyway, I hate to tell you, it breaks my heart, but that's not going to happen. For the young people out there who want to understand these things, you have an opportunity now to figure it all out. And you can learn how the world works, and you can decide how you're going to push back and what you're going to do. But as I said, most of my friends who are doing pretty well, and of course I know a lot of older people, but even for younger people, like I have friends who are in investment banking and so on, and they're quite young. So they're really excited to be in a position to make money. And you're not going to piss off money. You're not going to say, no, 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 it's cool. I don't want money on principle. You're going to say, I'm going to make as much as I can while I can. This is just the world in which we live, in which we find ourselves, the culture we're embedded in, the zeitgeist. And so, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. They're going to do what they got to do and ride it out. And so at the end of the day, when things get really, really rough, every one of them, I guarantee you, is going to say they made the right moves. They're on the right team. They did the right thing. And it's tough right now, but so what? You look at me and say, oh, you got a cold, huh? Your immune system is weak because you're weak. You don't know how to take care of yourself. This is what you do. You blame the victim. And if you become a victim, you still blame everybody else for victimizing you. So somehow Iran's trying to mess with America, and China's trying to kill America, and Putler's trying to kill America. All these people are clear as glass, as they can possibly be, about what they're doing, why they're doing it, what their objectives are. And they're not bombing people and murdering people and burying children in rubble. They're not doing that. But somehow we feel threatened because that's what you're supposed to feel, because it's lucrative. Somebody's going to make a buck off of all this madness, and it ain't going to be you, my friend. So that's what I'm talking about. I say here that TESCREAL anarcho-capitalists spend the world's resources accelerating towards a fantasy machine where they can compete forever for profits in the cloud. Yeah, right. Sorry, folks. Things aren't going to get any easier. It's locked in. The carbon alone. Honestly, if we didn't have the climate crisis because of some miracle technology, we'd still be in trouble. We'd still be in overshoot, regardless. But we'd have a lot more time to figure things out. But what makes us think we're going to figure things out? Greed is good. And there have always been power discrepancies. There's always been inequality and so on. And slavery by any other name. Like I said in my article, if you're not making capital on capital returns, if you're not making money in your sleep, you're most likely working for somebody who does, even if it's like down the food chain a bit, even if it's as a waiter or a doctor or a cosmetic surgeon or a corporate lawyer or anyone who maintains the sewers and the electrical grid. You're working for not only for society, but as things are privatized and taken over and co-opted and the rents keep multiplying and going up, you're going to have fewer and fewer benefits going to society as a whole, and more value siphoned off for the whatever you want to call it, 1% or whatever. Because that's the way the system is structured, designed, coded in law. And when you read about these think tanks and whatnot, you'll learn that they exist to seed the Supreme Court with ideologues. And you can go back to the Middle Ages or other times in history where you can see ideology and religion playing similar roles. There's a firewall until Luther comes along and says, read the book yourself. Well, I don't know how to read yet, Luther, but as soon as sorry about the accent. I don't know how to read yet, Luther, but as soon as I can, I will definitely read the good book. I don't want to, suggest that people from Arkansas or somewhere are dumb. They're not. So you can have your posh British accent if you can manage one, and you can see the Oxford boys are just as stupid. Anyway, so this is what's happening. This is the way we go. You're going to be taking care of these people as long as you're useful. And when you're not, you're going to be thrown to the curb. And you can see it all the time. And, when we sit around watching genocide and watching tent cities on our city streets and kind of shrugging our shoulders, it means we don't really care that much because we're well fed and we're comfortable. And so what can I do, man? I got to be stoical about this. There's only so much I can do. Losing sleep over it's not going to help anybody. I don't want to guilt trip people. I definitely don't want a virtue signal because I too am a sinner. But I suggest that it would be nice if we got together and did something. So that's my piece there. I'll just stop talking about it. So anyway, I have another project I'm going to do after this, and that's going to be it. It's going to be a documentary. I'm going to see if I can pull together some people in my community to talk about these things. I have a specific project in mind. In other words, something with achievable goals that we can collaboratively work towards with an operational mindset. Make some commitments, do some work together. If I can find 2 or 3 people who want to do this. I'm not trying to make a movement. I think most of the retirees and Portuguese people I know don't give a damn about any of this shit. It's like, I'm too old to care about this crap, or I'm too poor to care about this crap, or whatever. And believe me, I understand. But if I can find 1 or 2 or 3 people like me around here, and I think I can, I want to get together and have a Cospelon kind of salon get together and talk about a specific thing that we can do together that I have in mind, but I'm not going to spoil it now because I want to publish it. We're all jealous of our IP. We came up with it first. It's my phrase, all this crap. I don't understand why people's egos are so fragile, I want to be more important than you. If I put you on, you might get some attention and it'll take away from me. And I really need this attention more than you do, kind of thing, You have lots of girlfriends. I don't have any. I'm not going to, whatever. I mean, it's just, people are pitiful in that sense, but I don't know why they are. They might have good reasons for it. So, who am I to judge? I think it's unfortunate. We should be collaborating open source wise and recognizing that we're not all brilliant geniuses and, Pulitzer Prize winning authors and badasses. I love the humility that I see in people who really work hard and take risks because, these people can't afford to be arrogant. Their ass is on the line. And if they don't do things well, they lose. And the more they achieve through hard work, the more humble they seem to get. Anyway, that's what I think, but we'll see. So I'm going to stop. I went too far anyway with this. And I'll talk to you again when I get that project rolling. But I hope you'll read my piece at Substack or my website. All right, take good care. Have a nice rest of the weekend. Bulliam T out.